Awesome. So Mark's, we're just passing Mark
visual.
over there. He's just on his CPL long nav right now. He's doing his 2-hour long nav. And we're out for one of my favorite things to do.
Sir, I'm just passing you.
There you are. Have a great trip.
Thank you very much.
We're out doing one of my favorite exercises. So it's the first time we're doing confined areas as a new exercise. Yep. We've dabbled a couple times. We've landed a couple spots and talked a little bit about it. But this morning we briefed in the classroom about the entire process. Just to review that, when we arrive at a spot that we want to land at, we'll go out this way for now.
Sure.
We want to start with our high recon, which involves suitability, just making sure the spot's suitable to land in. Then we start working our way down from there as we orbit the spot around 40 to 50 knots. And we look at size, shape, slope, surface, surroundings, sun, shade, wind, wires, and power. Among other things that we see as we go, but that's just kind of a list to get us started. And at the end of the day, we do all that to make sure that the spot we want to land in is going to be safe to land in, right? So we've gone kind of into detail what each of those looks like, and then now we'll go out and practice the practical part of it.
Approaching the north shore, heading south.
We'll keep getting this pitot heat fail caption come on.
That's right, yeah. Currently the pitot heat is not working, so we can't go and fly and fall in the snow.
I'll keep checking it though, just in case it turns out to be something else later on.
Right, exactly. All right, so all kinds of cool spots to go down here. The first spot I want to go to, let's come across the lake over here. Yep, clear around to the left. Yep, so clear. Let's make a call here to south end of Stave Lake.
Okay.
Southeast side.
Stave Lake traffic, this is Cambridge G2 Golf Uniform Echo Tango, currently at the southern tip of Stave Lake at 1,000 feet heading north.
And we can start descending just a little bit as well.
Bravo, just over Hazik Lake 3000, eastbound upper airport.
All right, do you see the beach at the south end of that big clump of trees?
Yep, yep.
So let's come around to the left side of it. And that's going to be our first spot, is that sandy beach area, which, you know, at first sight doesn't look like much of a confined area, but yet it still falls in the category of what a confined area would be. It's confined because it's confined to where we can land.
Turning east to follow the Fraser River at 1,000 feet.
We have, you know, obstacles on one side, water on the other side. We got lots of trees sticking out of the water on the way in. So we're at 700 feet right now, so we can start an orbit. We can slow it down just a little bit more here as we orbit. 40 to 50 knots is a nice, comfortable speed to fly at. Allows us a nice, comfortable orbit. All right, so up here we're checking suitability. What do you think? Is it suitable?
I think so.
Nice.
Looks it.
Yeah, this one's a pretty clear cut. Probably going to be good to land there. So then we can start slowly working our way down in height so we can see more detail as we go down. So size, I would say it's big enough based on previous experience of what size the helicopter is. Shape, I would say it's suitable to land pretty much facing the tail in multiple directions. Right, so that shouldn't be a factor at this point. Slope, I would say overall, based on the contour lines there, it looks like it's sloped towards the water.
Yep, I agree.
Back behind us. Surface is going to be sandy, which could be an issue if it was a really dry day and it was going to be a lot of blowing dust and sand, right?
Yep.
Today it's rained recently, so it's probably going to be pretty ideal conditions. Wet sand is nice to land on because it's solid. You don't really sink in too much. It doesn't blow up, obstruct our view. So surface looks good. Surroundings, well, we got obviously these trees on this end. So we're not going to approach from this side if we can help it. And then if we approach from pretty much any other direction, we have to be aware of the dead trees that are sticking up out of the water, right?
Yep.
Most of them are shorter, but there is the odd one that sticks up a little bit higher that we have to be aware of. So surroundings looks okay though on the way in. Sun and shade, today is not a factor. There's no sun that's going to be in our eyes, which means there's also not a lot of shade, which is really nice. It's ideal conditions for that. Wind, what can you tell me about the wind?
So it's definitely coming from the south.
Okay.
It's quite strong, hence my slightly irregular pattern that I've just adopted. It's more of a racetrack. So I think looking ahead, I think an approach from the north is probably best, following the side of the trees to the spot.
So any ways of knowing how much wind we have?
We can use one of these instruments. I'm not 100% sure how that works though.
So if we look here, we have ground speed
Yeah.
at the bottom and airspeed at the top. We have a difference of 10 knots right
Roger.
now. And if we look at the water, we can also see the ripples coming up the
Yeah.
water. Pretty
Oh, yeah.
indication there's definitely wind from the south. And it's, 10 knots. It's probably a little bit less than 10 knots at the surface, I would
Yeah.
say, based on the waves. But it's something from the south for sure.
Yeah.
And like you said, your irregular circuit pattern is a pretty good indicator of where the wind's coming from. Pushing us towards the north, and then it's, as we come around from the north, it's kind of keeping us from going too far. So definitely wind from the south. That's a good indication we should come from the north. What about wires? Do you see any indication of wires, poles?
Not that I can see.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. There's no poles in sight. There's no wires that I can see. No buildings, no structures. That's good. And then our last thing is power. So we want to go out now to the north, and we'll set up for a dummy run. As we talked about in the classroom, dummy run serves multiple purposes. One is, as we go out here and we set up for our approach, we want to see how far out should we go. So I'd say let's go around this little island of trees here. And we're already thinking about our approach, so we're not wanting to pick up too much speed. 50 knots is great. We'll come around as if this was going to be our actual approach. And we'll terminate at treetop height. Yeah, this feels like a very reasonable approach if we were coming in. So keep slowing it down now as if we're slowing down for that approach as well. And then I want to do a flyby right at treetop height, just to the left of the trees.
Yep.
And I want to be at 25 knots when we get there. So keep that power down for now. See how it's turning into a bit of a high approach now?
Yeah.
If this is our actual approach. We want to keep that in mind when we go around the next time, that we get that power down a little bit sooner, so that we actually can turn it into a proper approach. So we like to use the treetop as a reference because it's hard to know if we're climbing or descending just using instruments, right? They dance around a little bit, whereas treetop doesn't really argue. Doesn't. Gives us a good indication.
It's about 54% now, around 25 knots.
Beautiful eagle over there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Get that up.
Yes, and we're pretty much level here. So let's call it 55 knots,
Yep.
or 55% to be on the safe side. We can add some power and start flying away. All right, so based on what we talked about in the classroom, 55% means we're going to use how much to hover?
So to hover, we're looking at the 70%, add in 15 on.
Yep, we can start our turn here. 70% to hover, and if we had to vertical out, how much power would that use?
That's another 15% on top, so we're around 85%.
Yep. So we can pick up a bit of speed here. We're turning downwind. Nice to have a bit more speed. All right, so 85% to vertical out. So let's test that when we come in there. We'll check our hover power. We'll see how accurate that was, and then we'll kind of test a bit of a vertical departure as well.
Cool.
See how accurate that was. The key is, like we talked about in the classroom, you want to be consistently at a level attitude, 25 knots, for a few seconds to let things stabilize, the power you need and everything, and then you get a pretty accurate station. That power down, we want to keep that approach going. This is our final approach now. We can see there's no tall trees, no tall obstacles directly in our path here. There's one little spindly one off to our left there, which we'll avoid. Sure, we keep descending here. We don't want to end up too steep at the end. as we touched on before, we just want to avoid descending obviously more than 500 feet a minute. We always use 300 feet as our safe zone, and we'll never approach any issues with vortex ring state. And once we get down here, we'll take a moment, take a look around, see where the best landing spot's going to be.
Is it a good idea to sort of come to a high hover initially?
Yeah, this is a good spot, good height to take a look around.
Just to make sure we don't hit anything.
Yeah, we can do a spot turn. The wind's not that strong.
Clear left. Just got that stump to the left about 10 meters.
Yep. Some obvious cheat marks around as well, but where would you think is the best place to land?
So I think either where we are now, or probably a bit further up towards that water there, I think. Possibly with the tail pointing there, so if we go straight forwards, probably about 15 metres or so. There are some tracks there already, but it does look like a relatively clear spot, relatively flat, plenty of space for the tail as well.
Yeah, exactly. We can see right here, there's a bit of a flat spot. Up top is a flat spot. Both of them have the ground dropping away below them, so I would probably choose this spot right here myself.
Yep. Let's clear left. Transitioning over there.
I always try, when you're looking around the aircraft, really focus on keeping that cyclic very still. Try not to move the cyclic with your body. Position the cyclic where you want it. Have a turn of the head, but don't move your whole body. That way we'll avoid those movements.
And it trimmed wrong. Yeah. So, bringing it down.
Bit of a seating check. Sure, as we go down, we always want to pat the ground.
Okay.
Get friction off there. I always want to pat it as you come down to make sure that it's always loading it a little bit more. But then you're ready to recover if something sinks in or drops. So you're just feeling that ground to make sure it's solid.
Roger. Collector's fully down now.
Yep.
Friction on. Pitot heat is still failing.
Yeah, exactly. Very nice. So this is obviously a nice big open spot, but it does still have some challenges that you face when you come in. And overall, you can see when you look around, there's a definite slope down to the water behind us. So it's very possible to come in here and want to stay into the wind and actually land with a fairly good slope.
Yeah.
So in this case, which we've talked about this before, but which skid hangs low on this helicopter?
It's the right-hand skid.
That's correct.
Starboard.
So if we wanted to face into the wind, we would actually be landing with our downslope skid on the high side of the ground. We would have to come down quite a ways to land. So probably not the best location to be landing into the wind with a slope.
Yeah.
Because it is, it's not a drastic slope, but it is a good 5 degrees for sure. So this is really nice, always into the slope like this. And there's, in this spot there is a bit of a flat spot here as well, which is cool. Well, when we get out of a confined area, we always talk about 3 things. DPR, so departure path.
Yep.
Which way are we getting out of here? May or may not be the same way we came in. It might be continuing on. In this case, we can continue on into the wind, which is going to be our best path. Yep. In some cases, it's a one-way in, one-way out best choice. So if the wind is not a major factor, you may choose to depart slightly downwind in order to have a standard departure instead of a vertical departure over the trees. In this case, into the wind is our as good or better of a departure than that one. So we'll choose to the south.
Yep.
P, we talked about power. So we'll come up on the hover, we'll check our power. We'll determine, can we do a vertical or do we have to do a standard departure? In this case, we're going to do a bit of a vertical because we wanted to test that out, right?
Yeah.
See what our power was. And the R stands for radio. So we want to do a radio call.
Roger.
Yeah, we're at the south end of Stave Lake, starting confined area.
Roger. So, in which case, pre-takeoff checks before or after we go through all this?
Takeoff checks first.
Yeah. All lights are out, RPM's in the green, fuel's still sufficient, confined areas in Stave Lake. T's and P's are all in the green, still getting this light popping up, but still going to keep checking it. All switches are on, beats on auto, collective friction is off. So departure path, like you mentioned, we do have a wind from the south. It's relatively clear. We do have the stumps though, but that is definitely the best option for departure.
Yeah, and I'd say if we go just over the water,
yeah,
like just along the shoreline, maybe the lowest departure.
In terms of power, so when we were in the hover, I know it's about 68% to maintain the hover, so it was pretty spot on.
Yep.
So I'm expecting around 85 for a vertical departure if needed.
Yeah.
And then the radio, I'll do now whilst we're on the ground now.
Sure, why not?
Stave Lake traffic, this is Cadbury G2 Golf Uniform Echo Tango departing confined area on the southern end of Stave Lake up to 1,000 feet.
Clear around to the left in front, around to the right.
Pause in the low hover here for a second. Double check that power. Coming to ground effect a little bit lower. Yeah, it's actually about 80% there. Into wind, it might be a little bit less because you're not having to fight that tail. Let's do a traffic check to the right.
Sure, tail's clear left.
Up a little bit higher for that.
And it all looks good. And because we're doing a 180, it's going to continue it round to the right.
Yeah, may as well.
Keep using the power pedal, tail's clear left. There we are.
Alright, so we're hovering actually out of ground effect with around, oh, it's 84, that's not 80 there. So it might be a little bit more than we thought, about 90% to vertical out of here. But that's alright, we're allowed to use that below 30 knots.
Yep. And then a vertical departure just like we would from the base.
Yeah, it'll be good to keep us above all obstacles here and also just to test out our power.
Positive reticle on.
There's 90%.
Coming to the left of these trees here.
Yeah. Start that climb as well. Right on. Well, that's beginning of many confined areas.
Yeah, I like those.
One of the big reasons that people like to come out and train this area is because we have so many of those kind of spots available to us, and landing in the mountains, in the cut blocks, lots of lakes and rivers and everything that we land in. Beautiful thing about this area.
Yeah, oh, I can see. Fantastic.